In this video, we're going to be looking at the two different types of data that we deal with in statistics. Now, the first type of data that we're going to look at is called quantitative data. Now, quantitative data is basically any data that can be recorded on a naturally occurring numerical scale. So, simple examples for this might be the temperature outside. So we can record that in degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit or whatever kind of measure we want for temperature. We could look at the speed of an object. Maybe that's in miles per hour, maybe it's meters per second, and so on. We could look at maybe the scores on a test. So we could look at percentage on a test. So maybe you get an 85%, maybe you get a 92%, so on, some kind of numerical measure that we can use to measure how well you did on that test. And the last kind of example that we can give is just any kind of count that we might have for something. So maybe like the number of students in a class or something along those lines. So we can just put counts. So anything along those lines. The second type of data that we look at in statistics is called qualitative data. And qualitative data is basically any kind of data that we can't naturally map onto a numerical scale, but we essentially classify into some subset of categories. So maybe this one, an easy one for this one would be like political affiliation. So maybe it's Republican versus Democrat versus independent. In a manufacturing process, it might be whether or not a part is defective. So that one will just be a simple yes or no. We could also look at maybe the make or model of a set of cars. So we could say make or model. Where if we're looking at a car, we'll say maybe it's a Ford F-150 or a Honda Accord or so on. Maybe we can break it down into those different categories of car as opposed to looking at maybe how much that car actually weighs. And maybe the final one will just be like a simple kind of qualitative measure that you might see in like a survey where you can say you're satisfied, unsatisfied, indifferent, and that kind of thing. Those are the two different types of data that we're going to deal with in this class. And sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to kind of understand which one is which. But essentially you need to figure out if you can classify the information into given categories, and if you can, then we're going to think about that as a qualitative measurement of data. And if we don't have any like predefined or well-defined categories that we're going to be able to classify that information into, we're going to look at that in a quantitative data kind of format. So can we accurately make a numerical measure of what the data actually looks like? Can we directly map that onto some numerical scale?